Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us for today's National Community Solar Partnership's second annual update. My name is Anna Balzer, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for the National Community Solar Partnership, and it is my joy to be kicking off this event for you all today. We are going to be covering a lot of material today, and we do not have a dedicated Q&A portion of the event, so we do invite you throughout the event today to use the chat to introduce yourselves, and ask questions along the way. And so, Sarah, we can go to the next slide. Great, and we can actually go one more slide forward. Thanks, Sarah. So for the second year in a row, the National Community Solar Partnership has put together this annual update publication and a webinar to give our members and the broader industry more visibility into all of the different efforts of the partnership. I'm going to be sharing the stage today with nearly a dozen of my teammates who are going to be going into detail on each of our initiatives and activities. But first, we have a brief message from the head of the National Community Solar Partnership, Nicole Steele. Nicole unfortunately was not able to join us today, but it was still excited to share some introductory remarks. So without further ado, a message from Nicole.
Well, thank you, Anna, and hi, everyone. I apologize for not actually being there live today, but this is a recording the day before the event. Really excited that so many people have registered for the National Community Solar Partnership annual update webinar. For those of you who I don't know and don't know me, I'm Nicole Steele. I lead the Workforce and Equitable Access team here in the Solar Energy Technologies Office, which includes the National Community Solar Partnership, and have been leading that effort since I joined a little over 3 years ago. And we're just really excited to, give you all the updates of what NCSP has been doing over the past year. I think for those of you who are very involved with NCSP, know how quickly we move and know how fast our programs move and really how fast the industry is changing right now. So excited that we have over 2,000 partners today, and really just wanting to, hammer home some of the highlights that came out of our annual summit back in February. Really want to sort of highlight all of the work that the DOE team and our partners at the national labs, both NREL and Berkeley National Lab, as well as all of our external partners who really make NCSP a true success, and really lifting up the work and the importance of community solar. And, I think for everyone that's involved in NCSP knows that we truly are here to ensure that as much community solar in this country incorporates our meaningful benefits, and while meeting the goal of NCSP. So I just want to make sure that everyone on this call is completely aware of what the goal of NCSP is. So it's enabling enough community solar in the US to power an equivalent of 5 million households with $1 billion in savings, all by 2025. So for those of you who are data nerds, they know that that is a very ambitious goal and less than 2 years away. But we really are tripling down and making sure that we're all working together to meet that goal. We know that we had about 7 gigawatts of community solar by the end of 2023, and but we also know that there was an additional 7 gigawatts in planning, which, if that actually comes to fruition in 2024, we are well on our way to meeting that goal. We also know that as part of the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, there are many incentives supporting the deployment of community solar, including tax credits and tax credit bonuses, as well as the newly announced Solar for All program out of the EPA. So we see some banner years ahead of us, and we're really excited to be supporting that through the infrastructure that we have already laid since 2019 here at the Department of Energy on how to best support stakeholders in the community solar space. But being at the table and helping design For example, the 48 little E Category 4 tax credit, helping design the HUD tenant benefits, helping partner with HHS on the Clean Energy Connector tool, and obviously really being a direct partner in the creation of the Solar for All program over at GGRF and EPA. So, you know, NCSP is successful because of everyone on this call. And we're really excited to dive into what we've been doing over the past year, and really what everyone should be getting excited about for the years to come. The big ask is, if you're not already an NCSP member, please do join, and I'm sure everybody will be putting all of the information in the chat to make sure that that is possible. But, you know, again, NCSP is who is active in it, is who's participatory in it, and we really want to see not only those 2,000 members being active at NCSP, but even adding more membership. And we really do listen. We created that goal as part of a stakeholder process. We created the pathway to success as part of a stakeholder process. We have created the meaningful benefits as part of a stakeholder process. And so, as you might have guessed, everything is stakeholder process here at NCSP. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to the NCSP. And again, thank you so much for coming to the annual update. And we really appreciate all of the time and effort that you give to the community solar space and the success of the community solar industry, and really truly making sure that everyone can see the benefits of community solar across this country. So thanks so much, and back to you.
Thank you, Nicole. As Nicole mentioned, NCSP has been working in close partnership with our members and other stakeholders over the last year to really rapidly respond to changing industry needs and build resources and tools that support community solar deployment with meaningful benefits. And you're soon going to hear about all of those efforts and progress on all of those efforts. But first, I want to provide some background on the National Community Solar Partnership itself. So as Nicole mentioned, NCSP has been an active program since 2019, working at the direction of Congress to increase access to community solar. Broadly, we do that through robust community solar market data tracking and reporting, a variety of technical assistance and tools, and through deep collaboration with and across all of our industry partners. Go to the next slide. And the definition of community solar from the Department of Energy's perspective is really all about sharing the benefits of a solar installation with multiple households or businesses. And everything we do here at NCSP is done through the lens of increasing the delivery and scale of these types of benefits. Benefits like increasing access to community solar subscriptions for all households with strong consumer protections, driving more household savings to subscribers, increasing resilience through storage and strategic siting on the grid, enabling communities to really be the designers of how solar impacts their economies and their place, and ensuring that there are pathways to good paying jobs and long successful careers in the solar industry through strong workforce development. Go to the next slide. And as Nicole mentioned, the NCSP has set a really ambitious target to grow community solar capacity from what was 3 gigawatts in 2021 to 20 gigawatts by 2025, and to provide $1 billion in savings to households alongside other meaningful benefits. In order to reach that goal, we worked closely with all of our stakeholders to identify the most pressing and persistent barriers to community solar deployment. And then we created initiatives around each of those barriers, a set of initiatives that we call the Pathway to Success. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into each of those initiatives, which, while they may look like separate topics on this slide, when Sarah moves to the next slide, you'll see when you peel back the curtain, there are an incredible amount of activities supporting work on all of these initiatives, spanning from direct technical assistance. I think we can click forward once, Sarah. Direct technical assistance programs to multiple online platforms, a 7-week instructor-led course on community solar development, multiple prize programs, and much, much more. Go to the next slide. This type of deeply interconnected and ever-evolving work, of course, cannot be done in isolation, and we are honored to partner closely with over 20 organizations that directly support and inform these efforts. Here's a quick snapshot of all of those partners, but you'll hear much more about how and where they engage throughout today's presentation. But before I jump in and go to the next slide, I want to provide a little bit of context around that goal we set. So we know we need to get to 20 gigawatts by the end of 2025. And at the end of 2023, as Nicole mentioned, we had about 7 gigawatts of community solar online. There was also, however, nearly an additional 7 gigawatts of community solar capacity in planning, with a growing amount of that capacity dedicated to low and moderate income households. So we are on our way. Next slide. We are also working towards that 1 billion in savings mark, with about 187 million in savings for community solar subscribers in 2023, and that's up from 97.4 million in 2021. We can go to the next slide. And our initiatives are really designed to continue to unlock that community solar capacity and those savings. We've worked with our partners at NREL to try to analyze the potential impact of reducing each of those barriers along the pathway to success. And we've mapped out what we think those impacts could be here on the community solar market. And today, the speakers are going to be providing updates on how each of these initiatives are evolving to meet that planned impact. And they have a lot to cover and not a lot of time. So I'm going to wrap up this section and pass things off to Anthony Sandonato to kick us off with technical expertise and capacity building. Anthony.
Thank you, Anna. I'm excited to be here to cover the Technical Assistance Program with you all. My name is Anthony Sandonato with Berkeley Lab. Next slide, please. NCSP offers free rolling technical assistance that provides organizations deploying community solar with resources needed to successfully implement community solar projects. We leverage expertise from partner organizations for both our direct technical assistance requests as well as assistance through the collaboratives. In 2023, we added 3 organizations to our list of providers and are looking to continue to grow our partnerships to broaden the depth of our knowledge and resources we can provide. Next slide, please. We offer technical assistance to support 5 general areas: policy, legislation, and regulatory research, project financing and analysis, outreach and engagement strategy, program design, as well as any other technical issues. The support comes in various forms, ranging from a consultation where we can provide resources, technical and financial analysis, developing custom research and market studies or third-party white papers, and finally, we can help with customized publications or toolkits. Next slide, please. Since 2020, NCSP has provided over 144 direct technical assistance engagements totaling over 2,500 hours. In 2023, NCSP completed 57 direct technical engagements totaling over 385 hours. We get requests from a wide area, and since its launch, we have had requests from participants in 35 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Next slide, please. In addition to geographic diversity, we also get requests from a wide variety of organizations, with the bulk of the requests coming from solar developers, state or local government, and community-based organizations. We've assisted in multiple categories with project finance, regulatory issues, outreach and engagement, and program design as our main requests. Next slide, please. So how are we doing? Well, over 50% of the respondents to our recent annual survey indicated that the technical assistance helped them deploy a community solar program or develop a community solar project. And over 60% of our respondents indicated the assistance was essential or important in advancing their community solar work. Next slide, please. So let's look at a couple examples that we have. The first one that I'd like to highlight is Together New Orleans. As part of this, we performed a series of modeling exercises to evaluate the economics of a community solar project located in New Orleans under existing program rules. The model explored how multiple different subscription rates, credits, to determine how shifts in these costs would impact the finances, both from the developer and the subscriber's perspective. Conclusions showed that under the current community solar rules, developers would not necessarily be incentivized to develop a project. Additional considerations such as subscription type, rate, and bill savings versus subscription credit were explored for consideration. The Michigan Department of Environment was interested in combining community solar with weatherization programs for manufactured homes. And this paper proposed a methodology that would help them first identify priority locations, second, set eligibility criteria, third, make the most of the funding sources. Ultimately, the paper recommended to combine community solar with efficient electrification to reduce the largest source of energy expenditure for the targeted communities, winter heating bills. And lastly, the Valley-wide construction services, where we developed a primer for community solar software and services for developers, owners, subscribers, and stakeholders. The primer offers examples of platform providers and the services they provide for this evolving business sector. It includes a checklist to help participants assess their needs for community solar software and services, encourages more research and discussion across the community solar sector. You can see a link to these resources in the bottom right. Next slide, please. In addition to one-off technical assistance, we offer further education through the program. A great example of this is the Municipal Continuing Education Series, which was developed with a working group of 7 public power utilities interested in learning more about community solar. From these sessions, a 9-session community solar curriculum was created to prepare municipal utilities to develop community solar projects and programs. And with that, I would like to thank you guys for your time and pass it over to Greg Leventis.
Hi, thanks a lot, Anthony. I appreciate that. So I'm Greg Leventis. I'm from Berkeley Lab as well. I'm going to give a quick overview of the Lodge model and then pass it over to Anya Poplavska, who will talk about what's been going on with the Lodge model as a project. So a big challenge for community solar is integrating the projects onto the distribution grid. So the interconnection process, that the negotiation between utility who owns and manages the grid and project developer to connect community solar onto the grid, that process can oftentimes introduce a lot of uncertainty into the projects, which can be highly detrimental to the project economics and even sometimes the project's viability. So the least cost optimal distribution grid expansion model, or the Lodge model, which was developed by Berkeley Lab, aims to provide more certainty in the process by identifying optimal places on the grid to site community solar. Next slide, please. So the way the Lodge model does this is by analyzing multiple scenarios on the different feeders in a utility's distribution system, and then figuring out what upgrades would be needed and under those different scenarios. So this can allow utilities to prioritize certain feeders and certain places on those feeders where community solar would be most beneficial for the grid system. And as I said, Anya's going to talk next about the plans we have to make the model and its findings more broadly available. But I'm going to move on to an example. So next slide, please. All right. So this is an example of the model output. It's an analysis of a feeder that is heavily loaded. You have this these maps on the left. On the far left, there's a feeder without the community solar, and to the right, there's one with community solar. And you see both the upgrades that would have to be made in the green, and then on the right, you see fewer upgrades, and you see where the community solar has been placed with the green star there. So that's the optimal spot. And then in the right-hand side, you see the table. These are the upgrades that would be needed in both of those scenarios, with and without community solar. And in this particular, in the costs associated with those upgrades. And then you see that in this scenario, adding the community solar would have a net deferment. So it would actually decrease costs there. So now I'm going to turn it over to Anya, who's going to talk more about the trajectory of the Lodge model as an NCSP project. Anya?
Thank you so much, Greg. So as Greg mentioned, I'm going to be giving some details on some of the progress we've made on the Lodge model so far. So as you can see on the top left corner on the screen, we launched the model this past year, which is really exciting. And the main objective of the Lodge model is really to work with utilities and commissions to ensure that they can get help on siting community solar and storage with this model cost effectively. And what's really awesome about Lodge as well is it actually has applicability to all DERs. So the first version of this model utilized simulated feeders from NREL's data set, about 2,500 modeled feeders, and Lawrence Berkeley Lab then put this into a report and published it on its website. And as you can see on the top right box on the screen, this same report was also submitted to a peer-reviewed journal because we really want to get the information out about the Lodge model and about what cost optimal siting for community solar and storage looks like in as many channels as possible. So with all this in mind, we did a huge push on outreach in this past year because we really want to get utilities and regulators excited to work with us, and we hope to test the Lodge model in pilot form with empirical data. So we hosted a webinar and we had more than 150 utility and commission related stakeholders come out. And as a result, we had more than 25 people indicate interest in taking part in our pilot. So as a result, right now, we're currently narrowing down those selections to choose 2 to 3 pilot partners that we want to work with to ultimately conduct this model with empirical utility data to really get the outcomes that we want to see and see clear results for what cost optimal community solar siting looks like on different types of feeders. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Simon Sandler, who's going to give a 2023 NCSP progress update on state engagement.
Thanks, Anya. Yeah, Simon Sandler here, and I'm excited to talk a bit about the States Collaborative and where we are with that. So if we go to the next slide, before we dive in, I just want to give a quick overview of where we've come with state policy. The States Collaborative was founded back in 2022 in February to help support states with their goals of deploying community solar. And we're really pleased to see that as of today, we have 22 states plus the District of Columbia and other areas in the country that have enabling legislation, which is a fantastic thing. And just in this past year, we saw 4 more states take action on this, either adding or broadening their programs. And so we're really pleased with that. And in addition to that, if we go to the next slide, we can see that not just are states working on community solar, but they're also focusing on low and moderate income households when it comes to community solar. So it was really nice to see this part of the map grow as well, with 1 more state working and focusing on LMI topics. And so that's a really fantastic bit of progress we've seen across the US here. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a bit more about how the States Collaborative is engaging with folks around supporting states and deploying these policies and programs. So as I mentioned, we were launched in February of 2022, and as of today, we have 34 active participating states and territories across the US. The map here only shows 17 of those, and those are the ones that we were publicly capable of sharing, but we're really excited because of those 34 states and territories, we have a broad coalition, and that includes folks in 11 states that have no enabling legislation that I just showed on the last slide, as well as some of the most mature markets and states across the country. So it's a really fantastic group of states we get to work with, and I'm really excited to keep supporting them. So if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight some of the work we've done in this past year. And so, with our partners NASIO and CISO, we've worked with 112 of the participants who are representing those 34 states that are members. We've done a number of topics engaging with them through 11 different peer learning calls or engagements. And on those calls, we've had at least 14 or more states and territories present on all those calls, which is fantastic. And those are covered a host of topics, including the meaningful benefits, which I'll talk about just a second here. And we also have engaged with folks on very specific targeted topics where they really needed additional support, especially on the low income and community ownership subgroup we formed and have partnered with CSUN on leading, as well as through the helping states understand the Inflation Reduction Act and how it applies to states and community solar specifically. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted just to highlight the meaningful benefits, right? at the end of 2023, we chatted with our states and we got some feedback from them to talk about how are they doing deploying the meaningful benefits in their state, in their programs, their policies, et cetera. And it was really wonderful. We were really pleased to see that 2 of those meaningful benefits really have been implemented at a pretty broad level and or are being implemented by states, that being household savings and household access for LMI households. So that's something that we were really proud of and really pleased to see that the support we had provided had helped. And then in addition to that, we're really looking forward to helping states work on those areas where they haven't had as much success developing or implementing meaningful benefits, you know, especially focused, as you can see, on increased resilience and grid benefits, and as well as community ownership and equitable workforce development. So if I go to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight one of the examples of how States Collaborative can directly engage with and support folks in going forward and the type of work we do. And so this past year, partnering with our TA program that you heard from Anthony about earlier, we were able to actually speak to the Washington State Legislature, not in person, over Zoom, but we met with the Washington State House of Representatives and their Environment and Energy Committee. And they were looking at a bill and looking at what type of legislation they might want to consider. And so we're really pleased to get to present to them on best practices and really hear about what is going on across the rest of the country so that they could learn from that and learn from the expertise that our states as well as our staff on NCSB have to offer. And so that's just one example of how we've engaged with states. We've done this type of work with a number of other states, but I just wanted to highlight this one in 2023. So thank you all for your time. I'm going to pass this off to Nick Langley now to talk about the Community Power Accelerator.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it. Great work you're doing there. We want to talk about access to capital and the response that NCSP has done in order to meet that. If we could go to the next slide. Thanks. So in response to gaining access to capital for community solar, we've released something called the Community Power Accelerator, which is an online marketplace. And we're connecting community solar developers with access to capital. This project was launched in January of 2023 as an initiative of the National Community Solar Partnership. But since then, it has grown to the point where it has spun off and become its own project. And NREL and the fine folks that you also see listed here, we're working in collaboration to make awesome things happen with gaining access to capital. Next slide. So part of that is one back. We've developed an online video. Due to time constraints, there's not time to watch it today, but we're going to drop a link in the chat. I would encourage everyone to go back and take a look at this after the presentation today. But really, it gives you an overview of the initiative and gives a better idea of like bridging the gap between community solar projects that need funding and the investors, lenders, and philanthropy organizations who want to finance them. Next slide. So before the accelerator was launched, and what led to us doing so was DOE, NREL, and some other partners conducted extensive stakeholder engagement across the community solar industry. And we discovered a number of barriers that stood in the way of community solar deployment at scale. Specifically, access to capital was listed as the most cited barrier, and it came up over and over. Additionally, other challenges that we heard were that community solar developers, particularly those trying to build projects in disadvantaged communities or areas that serve low-income households, they are having a very difficult time raising private capital. And access to capital continues to be among the most cited barriers to equitable community solar project deployment. So like I said, we put together this program in order to respond to that. So One of the things that's happening is the accelerator connects community solar developers. So those who are building projects in these areas that are serving low income and disadvantaged communities, it provides them with some resources to get them up to speed. So for instance, the Learning Lab, there are education opportunities, for them to go through and gain that knowledge that they need. There's an online marketplace where they can go and discover and gain access to organizations who have committed capital that they want to provide to these types of projects. We've come up with something called the Credit Ready Checklist. It's helping developers complete requirements that the capital providers are expecting to see, so that they're able to come with a credit ready project that's ready to go to get that financing. There's also a technical assistance component, and Anthony mentioned this earlier. So part of the great work that they're doing is reaching out and collaborating and providing that assistance to the teams and the project developers here. And we've also got a Community Power Accelerator Prize. So this is a mechanism that's providing funding to like pre-development funding to new developers. Next slide. So one of the things we heard from capital providers is projects were being pitched like apples, oranges, and bananas. So they're not consistent. And one of the things that we want to do is standardize what that equitable access to community solar financing looks like. So we're looking at standardizing contracts, term sheets, pro formas. It's going to help streamline that equitable access. We've also heard from both capital providers and community solar developers that there weren't enough skilled, experienced community solar developers out there in the country. So that's why what led to the training component, the Learning Lab, the resources to expand capacity and develop that expertise for community-led and community-focused deployment. And we're also aiming to provide many of those new developers with competitively awarded prize funding that helps them scale to build a robust project pipeline and deliver meaningful benefits to communities. Next slide. So 1 year in, or a little over 1 year in, here's where we're at by the numbers. So you can see we've got some nice distribution across the country and also United States territories where Community Power Accelerator projects are like underway, or there's areas where these developers have identified like they want to build a project there and they're looking to secure that financing. We've got 110 verified projects across 35 states and territories, and more than 40 solar developer organizations who are working on those. And of those, 68% of those are in just those 40 communities. And we've had a number of folks who have engaged with the different components of the program, specifically the Learning Lab. So we've had 126 developers who have participated in that to gain that industry knowledge and expertise. And 960 hours of technical assistance support have been provided to these developers. Next slide. And here's a breakdown of how project developers are building their capital stacks. There's $382 million listed currently on the accelerator for this is the amount that projects are seeking for financing. And the pie chart here kind of breaks that down into the areas in which these developers are seeking that. So some of that is in debt, much of that is construction debt. We'll also see there's tax equity, some tax credit, and a chunk which is related to philanthropic or public grants. Also on the accelerator, we currently have 38 capital provider partners or philanthropic organizations who are committing funds for these types of projects. And to date, we have just over $947 million in funds committed. So it's an awesome number to see just over 1 year in. Of course, we're looking to make that grow and hopefully we see that double in the near future. And additionally, like the way that the accelerator works is we're making these connection requests. So like I said, it is an online marketplace. And right now we've had over 240 of these connections that have been requested or established. Next slide. And finally, for my part, here's a list of organizations. You may find some of these on the accelerator who have committed to providing some of that capital, and they're looking to fund these projects. Additionally, some of these organizations were involved in the very early stages of the program in identifying what we need to have or include in the project profiles and the ways that we're trying to standardize this so that all of the projects are comparable and that capital providers have a way to evaluate things equally. So we've had some fantastic support along the way to get to where we are. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Allie Robbins to discuss more about the Community Power Accelerator Prize.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. I'm Allie Robbins. I am a contractor supporting the U.S. Department of Energy and the Community Power Accelerator. Since we talked last year, we launched not only 1, but 2 rounds of our $10 million Community Power Accelerator Prize. This builds off all the great work that Nick just mentioned. The prize is targeted towards new and emerging community solar developers and infuses them with really necessary pre-development funds and resources to get their projects credit ready. We have some facts and figures here on the bottom left-hand corner about each individual round, but you can read that on your own time. The most important thing that you all need to know is that these projects are really walking the talk when it comes to developing community solar with meaningful benefits. We also just recently announced the round 1 phase 2 winners who received $200,000 each in prize money. And we'll now be reaching out to those great capital providers that we just mentioned on the last slide and hoping to get these deals done in order to build their projects. We are also going to be hosting these winners to pitch their projects in front of capital providers in person at US DOE headquarters in May. So a lot more is coming from these projects. I really look forward to talking to you next year and giving you a readout on all of them. So please stay tuned. And without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it to my colleague, Ariel Drehobel.
Thank you, Allie. All right, I will be sharing the stage with my colleague Haiku Sky from NREL, speaking a bit more about the progress we've made on the Clean Energy Connector project to date. So moving to the next slide. Awesome. So the Clean Energy Connector project is one that we started a few years ago now. And the purpose of this project is to reduce barriers of income verification for low-income folks to enroll in community solar subscriptions with meaningful savings and strong consumer protections. We've been working in partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as NASIO-NEDA and a number of other organizations as listed on this slide. We began development of the software back in 2021 and have incorporated a lot of stakeholder feedback and have officially launched the software this year in our pilot states of DC, Illinois, and New Mexico. And we're currently seeking more states to work with on this project. Moving to the next slide. So at a high level, the purpose of this project is really to be responsive to stakeholder feedback that we at the National Community Solar Partnership have received over the years around the difficulty it is to acquire income verified customers for low income community solar programs, as well as the barriers that those households face when it comes to having to re-income qualify for participating in a community solar program. So the purpose of the software that we've created, which my colleague Haiku will speak a bit more about, is to really reduce those barriers of income verification and help streamline benefits to households so that we're able to enroll more low-income households in these programs, especially as we're scaling up development across the country. And now I'll pass it over to Haiku.
All right, thank you, Ariel, and hello, everyone. My name is Haiku Sky. I'm a product manager and researcher at the National Renewable Energy Lab. I oversee software development and expansion of the Clean Energy Connector, or Connector for short. So this slide here, this provides an overview of kind of the primary users and the primary beneficiary of the connector. This also outlines or summarizes some of the interactions that each user would take when interacting with the connector. But the key takeaway here is that the connector is designed for 4 user types: the State Community Solar Program Administrators, State LIHEAP Program Administrators, Community Solar Subscription Managers, and local LIHEAP administrating agencies. If you notice, households are not included in those 4 user types. And really the goal of the connector, as Ariel mentioned, it's reducing barriers for households. So the 4 user types do many things that essentially allow income verified households to be connected with community solar projects without the households having to do much work other than interacting with the local LIHEAP agency representatives. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. So to date, we have garnered a lot of different sources of feedback, trying to refine not just how the connector works, but how to actually make it work really well. And some of the questions that come up pretty frequently are outlined in this slide. So at first, big question is, how does the connector work? Ariel already outlined this, is that essentially it's identifying income verified households who want to enroll in LMI community solar subscriptions. And then it connects them with a subscription manager. And it does this, of course, without needing the households and subscription managers to go through all of the processes themselves. That really just streamlines the process. And second question, do households interact with the connector? So I mentioned this in the previous slide, that households do not directly interact with the connector. Really, the connector's goal is reducing the burden on the households. Additionally, how does the connector provide benefits? So two primary goals of the connector is having a guaranteed savings of at least 20% and enabling really strong consumer protections. Just because too often LMI households are unfortunately victims to, maybe unscrupulous approaches or projects that maybe aren't as thoroughly vetted as they should be. In terms of oversight, what oversight does the state have over the connector? So the state community solar and LIHEAP offices, they'll essentially approve the state level subscription managers as well as the local LIHEAP administrative organizations. So states are definitely involved, overseeing a lot of things as well. And lastly, how do I join the connector? So we're in our pilot phase, as Ariel mentioned, actively looking to onboard additional states. So yeah, please reach out. Additionally, there's a link for these frequently asked questions on the Clean Energy Connector website, as well as other information. Next slide, please. All right, I previously mentioned pilot states and partner states. So the 3 pilot states that are currently signed up and using the connector include Washington, D.C., Illinois, and New Mexico. And we've also had very close communication, collaboration, and a lot of guidance and feedback from partner states comprising New York, New Jersey, and Colorado. And I think we can move on to the next slide, and I'll hand it back to you, Ariel.
Thanks, Haiku. So we also wanted to share with everyone just a few updates on the stakeholder engagement that we have done over the last few years of developing this project. So as a reminder, we released a request for information back in 2022, and we took the feedback we received from that in mind as we began building out the software of the connector in 2023. In 2023, we held a number of stakeholder workshops within our pilot states, as well as with other key stakeholder groups who we wanted to hear from as we were developing this project, including convening a roundtable of state LIHEAP offices and energy offices to discuss how their programs interact with one another. We started building out the software in the spring of 2023, and were able to soft launch that software in March of this year, so about a year later. And we are still building it out, adding more features, and looking for more states who may be interested in utilizing the software for your community solar program. Moving to the next slide, I also wanted to just highlight as another success from the past year that we launched a ORISE fellowship, Low Income Community Solar and Energy Assistance Fellowship, in which we were able to place 3 fellows within our 3 pilot state offices in DC, Illinois, and New Mexico. And these fellows have proven extremely impactful in this project, able to really connect DOE and NREL to the state offices and support not only the development of this project, but also a number of other efforts within the states that are hosting them. So I would say this is another major success so far of our project. All right, I'll pass it back to Haiku to close us out.
Thanks, Ariel. And going forward to slide 51, thank you. And yeah, so as Ariel mentioned a couple slides ago, progress to date leading up to the launch in March of 2024. So we're definitely excited after a year of software development and over 2+ years of just design, iteration, gathering feedback. Yeah, we're really excited to launch, publicly launch the connector. And over the coming months and through 2025, we are, as I mentioned before, we're actively looking for additional states who are interested in joining the connector to have them join the connector and provide additional feedback. As we're continuing working with the pilot states and gathering feedback from interested states, software development cycle is iterative, and we will continue to find ways to improve or add features, fix any bugs that come up, and implement user feedback. Starting this fall, we aim to add a new cohort of states, and next year in 2025, have the second expansion includes second cohort of states. So very excited for what's to come, as well as how far we've come so far. Looking forward to any feedback, any questions, as well as any interest in joining the connector. All right, well, I think that does it for our project. If we want to go to the next slide, I will hand it off to my colleague, Robin Burton. Thanks, everyone.
All right, well, thank you very much, Haiku. I'm Robin Burton. I'm a researcher here at the National Renewable Energy Lab. Fun to be part of this NCSP relay race with the NCSP team today. I'm here to talk about education and outreach within the NCSP. So this involves looking at how we engage with NCSP partners and other community solar stakeholders and delivery of resources, including the results of our data collection and analysis. Next slide, please. NREL and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab work together with DOE to support the education and outreach component of the program. The way that community solar stakeholders officially become partners in the National Community Solar Partnership is by joining our online community on Mobilize, which is soon to be rebranded as Forge. Partnership is at the individual level, and we track where partners are located, organizations represented by our partners, and organization types. As of the end of last month, we have just about 2,000 partners on the platform, representing about 1,500 organizations across all 50 states, DC, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. The wheel on the right shows the organization types represented by partners. So you can see that solar developers have the largest representation, followed by consulting, community-based organizations, government entities at all levels, and utilities. Also, we're pleased to see that the partnership continues to expand, increasing by about 40% over the past year. One way we evaluate how well we're connecting with NCSP partners is by looking at what's happening on the platform, who's using it, and how. So this chart shows how many unique users viewed content on the platform over the course of a year. We can see there's increasing interest in what's being communicated by the trend line that angles slightly up over the course of the year, representing about a 22% increase from last April through this March. We also look at what people are using the platform to do. So member activity data from the online platform show that people are engaging with content in a variety of ways. Throughout the year, searching was the most common activity, followed by content appreciation, chatting, resource downloads, post reply, and this little purple wedge is actually making posts, which partners are encouraged and able to do. And then the chart on the right shows overall activity by month. So the gray bar is activity combined, and then the colors represent the individual activities. We can see that engagement activity fluctuates month by month. We've also been looking at how individuals engage with NCSP initiatives and combinations of initiatives across the program. And we're starting to tell that story by looking at how many initiatives individuals are engaged with. We're interested to understand to what extent the online community is the gateway into the program, whether people are moving from Mobilize to other initiatives, and what are the other points of entry. We're going to keep working to understand this better to increase engagement across initiatives. For now, we know that about 1,750 NCSP members are engaged in the online community only. And then in the table down below, we can see that about 1,900 members are engaged in just one initiative, which means that about 180 people are engaged in only one NCSP initiative, and it's other than Mobilize. We can also see that we've got about 350 partners who are involved in 2 initiatives, about 10 are involved in 3, and 2 are involved in 4. And this is, the data as we understand it today. In the chart on the right, we also wanted to look at across NCSP initiatives, how many partners are also on Mobilize or not. And so we can see that for direct technical assistance, the vast number of individuals involved with TA, and that's represented by people whose applications for TA were accepted, are on Mobilize. I'll just note that there's a discrepancy between the count here and the number of engagements that the TA team reported, because here we're looking at individuals, and sometimes an individual applies for TA more than once. We can also see that the majority on the right there of people who have applied for a prize are also mostly on Mobilize. Then looking at the States Collaborative and the Community Power Accelerator, we can see it's about half and half, people who are on Mobilize and people who are not. Here we're also featuring the different ways that we're engaged with NCS or with community solar stakeholders through events. So in addition to engaging in the online community, NCSP engages with community solar stakeholders in a variety of other formats and contexts. This includes hosting our own NCSP annual summit, NCSP webinars, workshops, and meetings, as well as presenting at other organizations, conferences, and convenings. The table shows some data related to NCSP public events, including where to access slides and recordings. And for these public NCSP events alone, we engaged with over 1,000 members, which doesn't include the many smaller meetings and workshops that we hosted. And finally, here we highlight a selection of NCSP publications in 2023, including websites and web-based platforms, as well as technical reports, data sets, a video, and how many times each of these resources has been viewed or downloaded. So many of the initiatives that my colleagues have presented on today are reflected here in this slide. We can see of note that the Community Power Accelerator over the course of the past year since it launched in January has been viewed over 50,000 times. We published in the past year a technical report about state policy for the landscape of community solar state policy, which has been downloaded over 4,000 times and has an associated data set. We've also included here a link to the data set of community solar projects across the US that NREL updates on an annual and, as of this year, semi-annual basis. All of these resources can also be accessed through a resource database that NREL updates on a quarterly basis and makes available on the Mobilize platform. And with that, I will pass it back to Anna to wrap us up.
Thanks so much, Robin, and thanks to all of our presenters. Relay Race is probably the best characterization of what we're up to today, but really appreciate everyone sticking with us and hearing all these great updates. I'm going to wrap us up by sharing just one last initiative that we want to make sure to talk about as a part of our education outreach efforts, which is the Sunny Awards for Equitable Community Solar. This is another prize challenge, so different from the Community Power Accelerator prize, but similarly a prize challenge in the American Made Challenges Network. And it recognizes existing community solar projects and programs that have been energized and are already delivering the benefits, the meaningful benefits of community solar to subscribers and their communities. And not only does this effort recognize the leaders in the industry, so the organizations and individuals that are really driving more meaningful benefits through projects, but it's been a really effective way for us to better understand what tools and approaches have been most successful in deploying these benefits and allows us to disseminate some of those best practices across the industry. And last year, we compiled those best practices into a report and also ran a webinar series on each of those meaningful benefits and how winners were delivering them. And I believe those are both being dropped in the chat right now if you want to learn more about those efforts. But in 2023, we ran our second round of the Sunny Awards prize, and we awarded 5 grand prizes and 1 meaningful benefit award and 7 finalists award, again, recognizing existing community solar projects and programs. If we go to the next slide, you can learn a little bit more about those projects. So among our winners, we had 2 grand prize winners that were running community solar programs, so either a statewide program or a utility level program. And then we had 4 project or portfolio level winners, ranging from projects that were smaller in size, but serving households through multifamily buildings or on carports outside of a church, or very, very large projects such as the Prologis project, which was serving over 400 subscribers on a warehouse in a low-income community. If we go to the next slide. Just overall snapshot, our winners from the 2023 Sunny Awards in aggregate provided over $30 million in savings to subscribers and served over 2,500 low and moderate income households, which is really helping us understand how we can better implement those same types of services across all community solar projects. So please do go check out more about our Sunny Awards winners online and through those links that Ariel dropped in the chat. And with that, we're going to wrap it up with just a few closing remarks. So if you can go to the next slide. First, we want to share, this is where we were in 2023. As Ali mentioned, we're already getting excited to talk to you about what we've done in 2024. Here's where we're headed. So for our technical assistance program, we're really looking forward to creating more public resources, taking what we're learning in our technical assistance engagements and making those learnings more public for our entire stakeholder community. We also really want to leverage the great work of our state's collaborative to help develop and support the Solar for All programs that were just announced earlier this week and really emphasize the deployment of meaningful benefits through those programs. Our Community Power Accelerator is really looking forward to continuing to build that pipeline, grow the number of projects on the platform, and increase the amount of financing that's available with a target of getting to over $1 billion in financing by the end of 2024. As Ariel and Haiku mentioned, the Clean Energy Connector is working on piloting the tool this year and then growing by 3 to 5 states with that pilot program, being able to connect more households receiving LIHEAP assistance with community solar subscriptions. We're also very excited to be launching the Lodge Model Technical Assistance Program, looking forward to working with 2 to 3 partners and sharing what we've learned by working with them this year. And then we're really excited to be working with broad groups of stakeholders on those meaningful benefits and how we might scale them to all community solar installations and all solar installations that are serving or located in disadvantaged communities through our equitable solar communities of practice. Go to the next slide. There's lots going on. There's lots of ways to engage. We really hope that you'll take what you learned today and think about the ways that make sense for you and your organization to engage more deeply with the National Community Solar Partnership. You may want to participate in one of our communities of practice. You may want to look at our data or see some of the upcoming data releases and analysis we have coming up this summer. We're going to be live in 2 conferences coming up in the next couple of months, including the CCSA Community Solar Innovation Summit, which is in Denver in June, and RE+ in Anaheim in September. And of course, we'll be hosting our summit again next year, and we'll be sharing more about that. So next slide, please do join the National Community Solar Partnership. It is the best way to stay connected with our resources and to be a part of them. As we've mentioned throughout the day, this is a stakeholder-informed, stakeholder-led effort, and we look forward to continuing to work with you as we grow more access to community solar and more access to its meaningful benefits. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you again to our great team of presenters, and thank you again to all of our partners that support this work. We look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks all.